what he has to flip over. What I do know is there's no evidence of wrongdoing with President Trump. So we're very comfortable. If he believes it's in his best interest to cooperate, God bless him. He should cooperate. I think the man has been horribly treated by the people he's going to cooperate with. But that, sometimes you have no other choice. I do not expect that Michael Cohen's going to lie. I think he's going to tell the truth as best he can, given his recollection.
So Cohen's new attorney, Lanny Davis, right, who goes back to the Clinton days in the 90s. Lanny Davis tweets this. Did Rudy Giuliani really say on Sunday shows that Michael Cohen should cooperate with prosecutors and tell the truth? Seriously? Is that Trump and Giuliani's definition of truth? Trump/Giuliani next to the words truth equals oxymoron. Stay tuned. Hashtag the truth matters. Dana is with me now. She is CNN's chief political correspondent. So you have Giuliani. You have the Lanny Davis reaction. Now you have the Giuliani.
Wait, more.
Now you have the Giuliani reaction to that. What did he say?
He responded directly. I sent him the Lanny Davis text, and tweet, and he responded directly by text, saying the following: "The truth will set you free. The president did nothing wrong with Michael Cohen. Everything has been a dead end because there is nothing there." So this tit for tat is going on here. But I think the important thing to note as we go back and forth on who might know something, who might not know something, what's the truth, and so on and so forth. This is Michael Cohen we're talking about. And Michael Cohen was, up until, I don't know, what time is it? An hour ago.
A minute ago.
Exactly. Was, obviously we made this metaphorically, was about as close as you can get to Donald Trump from his perspective. He absolutely adored Donald Trump, said publicly he would do anything for Donald Trump, and did a lot of things for him. And the fact that we are at this level of criticism, kind of going back and forth through us about what the other should think about and talk about, or maybe not think about or talk about with the feds, is really remarkable to see how far we have come, and to see even more specifically where Michael Cohen has gone. Now, I will say that Gloria Borger has been talking to sources familiar with Michael Cohen's thinking. She was told that he believes that it's actually Giuliani and the president who are trying to send the messages to him. Trying to send messages, okay, you know the line here, let's toe the line and everything is going to be fine. That's his perspective, how he reads it. And but at the same time, he's trying to send his own messages. Which came first, we don't know. But the key question here that we don't know the answer to is, aside from all of this back and forth and the fraying of this relationship, does Michael Cohen really know anything about Donald Trump that he could flip on or flip with? Giuliani insists the answer to that is no. The Cohen team is being coy.
That is the question. Dana, thank you. And more news out of your interview with Giuliani. Let me get to that. In this whole Sunday media blitz, the president's attorney also blurted out some major contradictions to his client's own statements. Giuliani seemingly confirming a central piece of this case for obstruction of justice, whether or not President Trump asked James Comey to drop the investigation into former White House National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
He didn't direct him to do that. What he said to him was, can you give him a break?
Comey says he took it as direction.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I've taken it that way. I mean, by that time, he had been fired. And he said a lot of other things, some of which have turned out to be untrue. The reality is, as a prosecutor, I was told that many times. Can you give the man a break? Either by his lawyers, by his relatives, by friends. You take that into consideration. But that doesn't determine that not going forward with it.
And here is the president's response to that very same question. This was back in May of 2017.
Did you at any time urge former FBI Director James Comey in any way, shape, or form to close or to back down the investigation into Michael Flynn? And also, as you look back...
No. Next question.
Let's start there. With me now, Solomon Weisenberg. He's a former deputy independent counsel in the Clinton-era Whitewater and Lewinsky investigation. So, Solomon, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thanks. Good to be here, Brooke.
Let's start right there on that bit from Giuliani and his assertion. Can you give Flynn a break? Is that still considered obstruction?
Well, it's not, I don't think it's obstruction under any stretch of the imagination. However, because you know my view, since the president has the right to order the investigation closed, he has the right, whether he said it or not, I don't know, he has the right to say to Comey, hey, can you give the guy a break? However, Rudy Giuliani is the president's attorney, and attorneys who purport to speak for their clients can end up making attorney admissions. And so if Rudy Giuliani makes statements inconsistent with the president or inconsistent with his own statements, as he has done, that could end up conceivably haunting the president. We just don't know. I don't think this particular thing was a big deal. As I listened to Giuliani, he didn't flat out say that the president actually said this to Comey. He simply seemed to assume what the questioner asked about that. I just don't think it's a big deal.
Okay.
I think a much bigger deal is Giuliani's statements over the weekend about what he would require before sending the president in for an interview with Mueller.
Well, before we even get to that, I wanted to ask you about the conversation I was just having with Dana Bash, right? Because she had Giuliani on, of course, on CNN on yesterday, talking about, the truth, talking about Michael Cohen and how he should speak the truth. If that's the case, we're home free. And this back and forth now between, Cohen's attorney, Lanny Davis, and then the Giuliani response. Does it seem to you that Michael Cohen, first of all, Solomon, does it seem to you that Michael Cohen has agreed to cooperate, to tell his truth?
That's impossible to say, but what the statement by Lanny Davis means to me, and I think all you can say about it, is that Michael Cohen is very worried and is under a lot of pressure and must have a lot of exposure for him to go public like this. That's all it says to me.
How do you mean?
Well, he seems to be sending a signal that he wants some kind of assurance from the president or the president's spokespeople that he will be taken care of down the line, will be defended or maybe pardoned or something like that. That's something that obviously it isn't wise for the president to say. But why is he doing that now in such a almost desperate way? And I'm very careful about speculating here, but it's impossible for me to think. I mean, to me, the only conclusion is that he's got a lot of exposure, what we in the white-collar defense field call criminal exposure, and he's very worried about what's going to happen to him. And so he's sending an SOS to the president and his team.
Got it. And then lastly, to what you said you found most noteworthy in those interviews, Giuliani's comments on the potential Mueller interview. Go ahead.
Well, I've been critical of a lot of the tactics of Giuliani since he came into the picture, but I think actually here he's doing something very intelligent. He's setting all of these preconditions for a Mueller interview. We have to know that their case is strong. We have to know why they can't get this from somebody else. Now, of course, Mueller doesn't have to listen to any of that, but if Mueller goes into court, if Mueller says enough is enough and issues a subpoena, and President Trump decides to take him to court on that, Mueller is going to have to say something very similar to a court. There's a case sitting out there in the D.C. Circuit from 1997. It's the Mike Espy case. It's generally referred to as N. Ray Espy. And the D.C. Circuit said before you can subpoena privileged materials from the president. You can clearly subpoena the president. But if the president claims executive privilege or presidential communications or something like that, the prosecutor has to come in and explain why this evidence is important, and he has to do it with specificity, and why he can't get that evidence from another source.
So you're saying that's what Mueller would have to do?
He would have to do it, and then the president's people could make all kinds of arguments. For example, they could say, well, wait a minute, if his theory is obstruction of justice based on firing Comey, that's an invalid theory to begin with. So that could be in court for a long time. And to me, the fact that Mueller hasn't issued the subpoena and gone into court indicates to me that he's not that sure of his position if push came to shove.
Something to look for.
So I think sorry, go ahead.
No. Just something to look for. And interesting, your
Yeah.
point, too, about Cohen's SOS. Solomon, we'll talk again. Thank you so much.
Promised in his own words to nominate only pro-life judges, whose selection will result in the automatic overturning of Roe v. Wade. Those are his words. Pro-life judges, automatic. He also said that Chief Justice Roberts has been an absolute disaster, his words, for voting to uphold the health care law, and said his judicial appointments will, quote, do the right thing, unlike Bush's appointee John Roberts on Obamacare, unquote. It is near impossible to imagine that President Trump would select a nominee who isn't hostile to our health care law and health care for millions and millions and millions of Americans, who isn't hostile to a woman's freedom to make her own health care decisions. We can be sure of this because President Trump, during the campaign, asked Leonard Leo, the founder of the Federalist Society, to assemble a list of possible Supreme Court justices for him to pick from. Mr. Leo was not only aware of candidates' Trump preference for a Supreme Court that would reverse Roe v. Wade, he himself spent his career in pursuit of it. And that's not just my view. According to Edward Whalen, one of the most prominent legal conservative activists and scholars and bloggers, said, quote, no one has been more dedicated to the enterprise of building a Supreme Court that will overturn Roe v. Wade than the Federalist Society's Leonard Leo. No one has been more dedicated to overturning Roe v. Wade than the very man who chose the list of 25. That's what we're up against here. And that's why America is on tenterhooks, so worried about any choice from this list. Let me repeat again. Mr. Leonard Leo is the man who assembled Trump's list of potential Supreme Court nominees, and no one has been more dedicated to overturning Roe v. Wade than Leonard Leo. Now, normally in the Senate, we have a process of advise and consent on the Supreme Court. In the old days, the president would consult with Republicans and Democrats in the Senate on a qualified judge, and then, after careful deliberation, nominate a jurist that could get bipartisan support. What we have here is the exact opposite. The president has gone to two far out of the mainstream hard-right groups, the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society, and asked them, not the Senate, to advise and consent on a Supreme Court nomination. Whomever the president selects tonight, if that nominee is from the pre-approved list selected by Leo and the Heritage Foundation, everyone ought to understand what it means for the freedom of women to make their own health care decisions and for the protection